One quiet summer morning, Dr. Ethan Cole unlocked his clinic door and nearly dropped his keys. Standing on the front porch, glowing in the warm sunlight, was a familiar young mountain lion, the same cub he had released into the wild weeks earlier. It was stronger now, taller, steadier. But its return wasn't what froze Ethan in place. It was the moment the lion cub looked up, opened its mouth, and made a sound no wild creature should ever make. Hello. With that single word, everything Ethan thought he understood about nature began to unravel. The heat pressed down on the small veterinary clinic at the edge of the Sierra Nevada, like a heavy hand, thick and unmoving, the kind that made even the ceiling fans groan as they spun. Dr. Ethan Cole had just turned off the lobby lights when he heard hurried footsteps crunch across the gravel outside. At first, he thought it was a late pet owner rushing in for an emergency appointment, but the moment the door burst open, he knew he was wrong. Maya Ortiz, wildlife ranger, steady as a rock, the type who didn't even raise her voice when a black bear wandered into someone's garden, stumbled through the doorway, breathless. Her uniform was covered in dust and bits of dry grass, her hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. And in her arms, wrapped clumsily in her jacket, something shifted. "Ethan," she gasped, "I need you right now." He didn't waste a second. Whatever could put that look in Maya's eyes wasn't going to be simple. He guided her to the exam room, and as she laid the bundle on the table, a faint tremor rippled beneath the jacket, followed by a thin, rasping breath. "I found him wedged in a rock crevice," she said, peeling the jacket open with shaking fingers. "I thought it was a bobcat at first, maybe even a big house cat. But then—" The words died in her throat as Ethan brushed the jacket aside completely. A mountain lion cub, but impossibly small, far smaller than any summer cub he had ever treated. Its ribs showed under dull, sandy fur, and one leg was scraped raw, as if it had clawed desperately at stone. Dust clogged its whiskers, and every breath sounded like it cost the little body more strength than it had left. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, maybe worse. The Sierra summer wasn't kind, not during a heat wave this brutal. Wildfire smoke still lingered from a blaze miles away, drifting down from the ridge like a ghost. Before Ethan could speak, the cub lifted its head an inch, just enough for its heavy eyes to find his face. And then, unbelievably, it made a sound. Not a hiss, not a growl, not the soft chirrup young mountain lions sometimes made. It was a complaint. A tiny, breathy, irritated "May, eh?" directed squarely at him, as if he'd shown up late to his own clinic. Ethan blinked. Maya froze, and from behind them came a metallic crash as Liam, the college intern, dropped an entire tray of tongue depressors. "You heard that, right?" Maya whispered. "Tell me you heard that." Ethan didn't answer immediately. The cub stared at him again, whiskers trembling, as though waiting for a reply. And for a strange moment he felt the weight of that gaze settle into his chest like a stone in water. "It's distressed," he finally managed, though he didn't believe the words fully. Extreme dehydration can cause odd vocalizations. As if offended, the cub raised its head a fraction higher and produced an even more exasperated "Meh, eh?" Liam slapped, a hand over his mouth to stifle a laugh. "That sounded like it was scolding you," he choked out. Ethan ignored him. Gently, he slid his hands under the frail little body. The cub flinched but didn't fight, too weak to resist. Its skin was hot, almost scalding, and tremors ran beneath the fur. Heat stroke. Dangerous for any wild animal, especially something so young. "How long was it stuck?" he asked. "Hard to say," Maya replied. "The rock slide must have happened yesterday. I only checked the area because Helen, remember the old rancher down the road, said she heard what sounded like a child fussing near the ridge. I thought she was just hearing coyotes echoing." Ethan almost smiled. Helen had lived alone near the foothills for 30 years and survived every wildfire, drought, and blackout that California threw at her. If she said she heard something strange, she probably had. He placed the cub on a cooling pad and examined the injured leg. The cuts were too clean, too straight, not from rock, not from claws, something man-made. His stomach tightened. A trap, or at least the edge of one. But before he could say anything, the cub's eyes fluttered open again. It focused on his mouth, on the movement of his lips, and when he murmured, "Easy, little one," it let out a soft, grainy, "E-Z?" as if attempting to mimic him. Liam nearly fell over this time. "Okay, no way that's normal," he whispered. "This is like AI voice mimicry, but with fur." "Liam," Ethan warned, though he couldn't hide his own shock. "Animals respond to tone. They don't imitate." Yet the cub was still staring at him, intent, unwavering. Maya stepped closer. "Ethan, do you think someone tried to raise it? Imprint it? It reacts to you like you're its person." He didn't answer. He couldn't. The cub weakly stretched a paw toward him, tapping his wrist. Once, twice, then a third time. The same steady rhythm as someone knocking on a door. Tap, tap, tap. The room went silent. Outside, the late evening sun dipped behind the ridge, casting long shadows into the clinic. The fans hummed. The heat still pressed in. But for the first time all day, Ethan felt a prickle of something other than exhaustion crawl down his spine. Recognition, connection, and beneath it all, a warning he couldn't quite name. Because whatever this little mountain lion was, it wasn't done surprising him. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning of a story he wasn't ready for, one that would test every instinct he had about wildlife, about responsibility, and about letting go. "Let's get you stabilized," he whispered, unable to tear his eyes away. The cub blinked once, then answered with a soft, unmistakable, "Yeah." Ethan nearly laughed in disbelief. Nearly, because nothing about this felt like a joke. It felt like the start of something extraordinary and dangerous. By the time the sun dipped fully behind the Sierra Nevada ridge, the heat inside the exam room had settled into a thick, breathless stillness. Ethan worked quietly, checking the cub's temperature, running a fingertip lightly along its cracked paw pads, and feeling the fast, unsteady rise and fall of its tiny chest. The cooling pad beneath it helped, but dehydration and heat exhaustion ran deeper than surface symptoms. It would take time. Time the little one didn't seem confident he had. Yet even in that fragile, wavering state, the mountain lion cub kept doing something no wildlife manual could prepare Ethan for. It watched him, not the cautious, darting watchfulness of a scared animal, but something much more deliberate. Its gaze followed the movement of his lips, the shift of his eyes, the angle of his head. Every tiny thing he did, the cub absorbed as if cataloging it. "Easy now," Ethan murmured again. And again, softly, weakly, the cub echoed him. "E-Z?" Maya froze mid-step, a roll of bandages in her hands. "That is not possible." "It's just tone mimicry," Ethan insisted, though his voice betrayed him. "Parrots do it. Some birds, maybe stress triggers." "Stress doesn't make a mountain lion say easy, Ethan." From the corner, Liam nodded dramatically. "Exactly. And it didn't just mimic tone, it mimicked attitude. That sounded irritated. Like you." Ethan shot him a look, but he couldn't deny the truth. There was something uncanny about it, something that made even the air feel charged, like the moment before a summer storm breaks. He checked the injured leg again. The cuts were too clean, the slices too smooth along the edges. "This isn't from rocks," he murmured, tracing the wound gently. "This looks like metal." Maya frowned. "A trap?" "Possibly, or the edge of one." Liam swallowed hard. So, someone set a trap for a baby mountain lion? That's illegal. Like, big illegal. Federal illegal. Maya nodded grimly. We've had reports this month. A man moving through the back range near Alder Creek. People say he's looking for young predators he can sell. A trafficker? Ethan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He glanced at the cub, who, in perfect contradiction to the gravity of the moment, blinked up at him and let out a small, irritable, "Monsieur, eh?" as if complaining that they were talking too loudly. Liam clutched his chest. "Okay, nope, that's it. That was sass. Literal sass." "You're not helping," Ethan muttered, though even he couldn't hold back a quiet breath of disbelief. He gently lifted the cub's head, supporting its neck as he dripped electrolyte solution between its lips. The cub accepted it, but with every swallow it kept its eyes locked on him, as though studying the way he moved, the way he breathed, the way he existed. "Animal's imprint," Maya said softly, watching the pair. "But not like this." "It's just exhaustion," Ethan insisted again, though weaker this time. "Fear, trauma. When the body's overwhelmed, strange behaviors happen, even in humans, especially in humans." "Which reminds me," Liam said, rolling closer on his stool. "Do you think this could relate to that article you showed me last week? The study about mirroring behavior in stressed mammals. You know, the one you said advertisers used as an example for how humans mimic tone in financial decision-making?" Ethan blinked at him. "Liam, I mentioned that once." "I'm just saying," the intern shrugged. "The cub mirrors Ethan the way people mirror speech patterns when talking to a banker or an insurance agent. It's weirdly natural." Maya snorted. "Comparing a mountain lion cub to a financial advisor is a stretch." "Is it?" Liam pointed. "He literally said, 'Easy back.'" Before Ethan could argue, the cub shifted weakly. Its paw lifted, trembling, and tapped Ethan's wrist again. 3 distinct beats. Tap, 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 but this time something new followed. A sound, soft, breathy, but shaped. "Nah?" Ethan's hands froze. Maya whispered, "It's asking you something." "No," Ethan said quietly. But the conviction wasn't there. The cub blinked once, then twice, as if waiting for him to reply. He exhaled slowly. "Let's get you hydrated," he said, reaching for a second syringe. To his shock and Maya's audible gasp, the cub responded immediately. "Hide, eh?" Liam slapped the desk. "He's learning English." "Liam," Ethan snapped. "Volume." Sorry, but come on, this is unbelievable. You could record this and it would go viral in seconds. Baby mountain lion learns to talk. We could fund the clinic for life." The cub flinched at the raised voice, shrinking back into the towel. Ethan leaned in, lowering his own tone. Hey, it's all right." The cub peeked up from the folds of fabric, then, hesitantly, echoed him. Right?" Maya covered her mouth. "Ethan, it's communicating." He didn't answer. He couldn't. Not when the evidence sat right in front of him, breathing shallowly, trusting him in a way no wild animal ever should. The door to the lobby creaked open. Helen, the elderly rancher who'd reported the strange sounds, peered inside. "I brought water for you kids," she said cheerfully, then froze when she noticed the table. "Well, I'll be... That the little fuss bucket I heard up near the ridge?" The cub made a tiny grunt of recognition. Helen leaned closer, eyes twinkling. "He sounds like my nephew when he's told to do chores." Liam's jaw dropped. "Oh my God, it's universal. He complains in every language." Ethan tried not to smile, but the absurdity of it, mixed with the heat and exhaustion, almost broke his composure. Yet beneath the humor, worry simmered. Deep, quiet, persistent. This level of attachment wasn't normal. This vocal behavior wasn't normal. And the clean-cut injury? The signs of human involvement? He looked at Maya. She was thinking the same thing. "If someone trapped him once," she said softly, "they'll try again." Ethan nodded. The cub, exhausted, pressed its small head into his palm. The soft fur, the faint tremble beneath it, the warmth, it all felt painfully fragile. He whispered, "You're safe here." The cub answered without hesitation, "Safe?" Ethan's breath caught. For a second, nobody spoke. Even the fans overhead seemed to quiet. This wasn't mimicry. This wasn't instinct. This wasn't chance. It was intention. And for the first time, Ethan understood the depth of the problem, the magnitude of it. Not only had this cub survived a trap and the brutal California heat, it had somehow imprinted on him in a way no mountain lion ever should, which meant one terrifying thing: if the world outside found out about him, they wouldn't leave him alone. Not the traffickers, not thrill-seekers, not people obsessed with talking animals, not even the well-meaning ones who didn't understand what a wild creature needed. The little cub lifted its paw again and tapped his wrist. Tap, tap, tap. As if asking, pleading, "What happens now?" Ethan didn't know the answer. Not yet. But he felt the weight of the question settle into his bones. Whatever this was, it was no longer just a rescue. It was the beginning of a responsibility he had never asked for, one that might cost far more than he realized. He swallowed hard. "We'll figure it out," he whispered. The cub responded with a soft, trusting hum, something between a sigh and a promise. By the next morning, the scorching heat had settled over the Sierra foothills like a thick blanket, turning the clinic's metal roof into something that crackled softly each time the temperature climbed another degree. Ethan arrived early, long before the first appointment of the day, expecting to find the little mountain lion cub asleep. But the moment he pushed open the exam room door, a small head lifted from a pile of towels, ears twitching, eyes bright with recognition. The cub let out a soft, wobbly sound that wasn't quite a chirp and not quite a meow, something in between. "Hello?" Ethan stopped mid-step. "Are you greeting me?" Behind him, Liam appeared holding 2 iced coffees, nearly dropping both. "No way, no way. Did it just say hello? Like a real hello? Ethan, you have to admit, this cub is a genius, or psychic, or possessed, something." "It's not talking," Ethan muttered, though even he couldn't convince himself anymore. He moved closer, and the cub's eyes followed him like a tracking beacon. Its tail gave a tiny thump against the folded blanket, and when Ethan reached a hand toward it, the little creature leaned into the touch like a house cat, begging for affection. "You're feeling stronger," he murmured. "Stronger?" the cub echoed softly. Liam slapped the doorframe. "Oh, come on! It's copying you like an AI voice assistant." "Liam," Ethan warned, though his lips twitched, "it's a baby mountain lion, not a smartphone." "Yeah, and I'm a billionaire in tech sales," Liam scoffed. "I'm telling you, if advertisers or big companies heard this, they'd lose their minds. Talking wildlife? That's like top-tier content creation, viral marketing in real life." Maya walked in just in time to hear the last part. "Liam, please don't encourage the universe to make this weirder." But it was already too late. The cub perked up at her voice and let out a garbled sound that almost resembled "huh, yeah?" as if attempting her name. Maya pressed a hand to her chest. "Okay, that's adorable and mildly terrifying." The cub blinked slowly, the way it often did when it seemed to be thinking. Then it stretched its front paws forward, dragging itself closer to Ethan. The injured leg still trembled, but its movements were far more controlled than yesterday. He reached down and steadied it, and the cub responded by nudging its head beneath his palm, eyes closing in relief. "This is imprinting," Ethan said softly. "Too much imprinting." "Or love," Maya countered gently. He didn't answer. Throughout the morning, the cub continued its strange pattern of learning. When Ethan whispered "easy," it muttered "easy." When Liam groaned dramatically about paperwork, the cub echoed the same groan seconds later, causing Maya to almost fall off her chair, laughing. At one point, when Ethan set down the stethoscope, the cub reached out with its tiny paw, tapped the metal 3 times, and chirped as if saying, "Pay attention." But none of it compared to what happened at noon. Ethan prepared a small bowl of recovery formula. "Let's see if you can eat on your own today." As he brought the bowl forward, the cub whined softly and looked from the bowl to Ethan, then back again. Its tiny paw reached out and tapped his wrist, the signal it seemed to reserve only for him. And then it made the most pathetic, pleading noise Ethan had ever heard. Hung. Gee." Liam choked on his sandwich behind them. "It just said hungry." "Hungry? Ethan, admit it. Admit it." Ethan didn't admit anything out loud, but he did feel something warm press into the center of his chest, something uncomfortable because of what it meant. If the cub learned to associate food, comfort, and communication with him alone, then releasing it back into the wild would be nearly impossible. He needed distance. The cub needed distance. But the cub didn't care about logic. As soon as Ethan tried to take one step away, the little creature let out a distressed sound, scrambled clumsily across the towel pile, and pressed its head against his boot as if anchoring itself. "Do you see this?" Maya whispered. "He trusts you more than anything else on earth right now." "That's the problem." Ethan's voice cracked more than he expected. He crouched and tried to ease the cub back into its blankets, but the little creature clung to him with surprising strength, digging its tiny claws into the cuff of his scrub pants. "Mr. No," it whined, clear as day and heartbreaking. Ethan sat back, overwhelmed. "I don't know how to help you without hurting you." The cub didn't understand the words, but it understood the tone. Its ears flattened, and it crawled into his lap, curling into a trembling ball of fur. Maya exhaled shakily. "Ethan, I think someone raised this cub before, or tried to. Maybe that's why it vocalizes the way it does. Maybe it's why it mimics humans." He stared at the wound on the cub's leg again, the clean edge, the unnatural shape. "A trap didn't cause this," he said quietly. "A person did." The room fell silent. Liam leaned in. "So, what do we do? We can't call fish and wildlife yet. If they hear about a mountain lion cub behaving like this, they'll take him away for testing, or put him somewhere he can't come back from." Ethan clenched his jaw. He knew the laws, he knew the regulations, and he knew the consequences of interfering with a federally protected species. But he also knew this cub wasn't ready for the wild. Not physically, not emotionally, not with a wound like that, not with a trafficker potentially searching for him, and certainly not when he depended so deeply on Ethan that even stepping 3 feet away sent him into distress. Ethan lifted the cub gently from his lap, placing him back on the padded blanket. The cub whined but didn't fight, exhausted from the emotional storm of the day. Before laying down, it lifted its paw and tapped Ethan's wrist again. Tap, tap, tap. A message, a question, a plea. Ethan swallowed hard. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." The cub curled up, finally relaxing. Its breathing steadied, and a faint rumbling hum, like the beginning of a purr, vibrated against the towels. Maya watched carefully. "He'll heal fast, faster than you think." "And when he does," Ethan murmured, "I'm the one who has to let him go." Neither of them said what they were truly thinking. Letting him go would break one of their hearts. Maybe both. Late that afternoon, while the cub slept in a warm patch of sunlight, Liam tiptoed into the office, holding his phone. "So, I did something dumb," he whispered. Ethan closed his eyes. "What did you do?" "I posted a tiny clip of the cub making that weird sound last night, just to my study group, But someone reshared it, and then someone else reshared it, and now I think it's spreading. Ethan shot upright. Liam! I know, the intern whispered frantically. I deleted it, but you know how the internet works. Once something's out, it's out. Why would you even... Because it was beautiful, Liam said helplessly. And unbelievable. People need to see things that feel hopeful, especially now, with everything so expensive. The cost of living, insurance, banking, all of it weighing people down. I just wanted to give them something good. Ethan wanted to be angry. He really did. But instead, he looked at the sleeping cub, whose small breaths trembled softly against the blanket. The world didn't need to see him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Trouble was coming. He could feel it. But for one more night, in the quiet heat of the Sierra summer, the cub slept safely, trusting the man he should have feared and mimicking the voice he should never have learned. And the deeper that bond grew, the more impossible the next step became. Ethan wasn't sure who needed saving anymore. The little mountain lion, or the man who couldn't let go. By the fourth day, the morning heat rolled across the foothills like a warning. Even before the sun fully crested the ridge, the air held that heavy, vibrating hush that always preceded wildfire season. Ethan stood outside the clinic for a long moment, feeling it settle on his shoulders before finally heading inside. He already knew the cub would be awake before he reached the exam room, and he was right. The little mountain lion lifted its head from the blanket the moment the door opened, eyes bright, tail twitching, a soft and unmistakable "Hello" drifting out to greet him. He should have been happy, but dread had already begun its slow crawl through his chest. Maya arrived minutes later, looking more serious than he'd seen her in months. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "The ranger station got word early this morning. Reed was spotted near Alder Creek again. And this time, he wasn't alone." Ethan froze. How close? Too close. Maya sighed, rubbing her forehead. "Dawson says the tracks lead straight toward the area where I found the cub. They think he's looking for something specific, something he lost." The cub shifted as if sensing the tension, letting out a soft question-like noise. "Mr. A?" Ethan knelt, stroking the cub's head to calm him, but his own hands weren't steady. "If Reed is searching for him, we can't keep him here. The clinic isn't secure, and if anyone else sees how he behaves—" "You know what happens," Maya finished for him. "State regulations, federal involvement, tests, confinement. He'll never see the wild again." Liam, who had been eavesdropping from behind the hallway corner for at least a full minute, stepped forward with guilt written across his face. "This is because of that stupid video, isn't it? I didn't mean for it to spread. I thought I deleted it in time." Maya shook her head. "We don't know if it's connected, but Reed's timing is too perfect." Ethan didn't respond. He just looked at the cub, now nudging at his wrist again with that faint, rhythmic tap. 3 soft beats that had become his silent language. Tap, tap, tap. "What happens now?" Ethan swallowed hard. "He's healing fast. His leg is almost stable. If we're going to release him, it has to be soon." Maya hesitated. "Are you sure?" "No," Ethan whispered, "but keeping him here puts him in more danger." He lifted the cub carefully, testing the healed limb. The cub winced, but didn't pull away. He pushed his head into Ethan's chest as though trying to fuse himself into safety. Ethan's breath caught painfully. "You're not making this any easier," he murmured. The cub's answer was a small, broken "No." Liam flinched. "Oh, come on. That sounded like no." He said no. "Ethan, how do you release something that literally says no to your face?" Ethan didn't answer. By early afternoon, Ranger Dawson himself arrived to assess the situation. A broad-shouldered man with a weathered face and calm authority, he scanned the clinic with sharp eyes before stepping into the exam room. "So this is the little miracle," Dawson said, lowering into a crouch. The cub watched him warily, ears flicking back. "He's small, but he's stronger than he looks." "He's recovering," Ethan said. "Fast. And that's why we're out of time." Dawson's tone softened, but the weight in his words didn't. "If Reed is tracking him, he won't stop. If he finds this place, the cub won't be the only one in danger." Liam swallowed. "Are we talking actual danger? "Reed isn't just a poacher," Dawson said. "He's a trafficker. People like him disappear wildlife and leave no trace behind." The cub pressed closer to Ethan, letting out a low, fearful vibration. Ethan ran a hand along its back, desperately wishing he had more time, more logic, more options. "We'll take him to Granite Hollow," Dawson said. "Deep in the range. No roads, no footpaths. It's safe." Ethan nodded numbly. He knew the place. He'd hiked it many times. A wide clearing between granite slabs, surrounded by thick manzanita and pine. The kind of place a young mountain lion could grow into itself without fear. But letting him go felt like tearing something loose inside his chest. As they prepared to leave, the cub sensed the shift. It paced unevenly, dragging its still tender leg, whining soft, broken syllables. No?" Even Dawson paused. "Did he just—" "Don't," Ethan said quickly. He couldn't take any more commentary, not when the cub's every sound felt like a plea. He had no right to answer. Maya helped gather supplies, giving Ethan a quiet, knowing look. "He'll be okay. You did everything right." "Then why doesn't it feel like it?" They loaded the cub into a carrier lined with the familiar towel he always slept on. The moment the door clicked shut, the cub let out a sound Ethan had never heard from him before, a long, wavering cry that trembled between fear and heartbreak. Wah. Ethan closed his eyes. Even Liam wiped at his face and muttered something about allergies. The drive up the mountain trail felt longer than it should have. The air thinned, the road narrowed, and sunlight filtered through thick clusters of oak and pine. The hum of the engine did little to drown out the periodic soft cries from the carrier in the back seat. When they finally reached Granite Hollow, the world felt untouched. No human scent, no tire tracks, just a wide clearing framed by rocks warmed by the sun and brush rustling in the breeze. Maya opened the carrier door first, stepping back quietly. The cub didn't move. He looked at Ethan instead. Those eyes, golden, questioning, hurting. Ethan knelt. "This is your home," he said softly. "This is where you belong." The cub stepped out slowly, trembling not from weakness now, but from confusion. He sniffed the grass, the dry summer air, the towering granite walls. Then he turned back to Ethan again and let out a sound that ripped straight through him. "Ma, why?" Maya whispered. "Ethan." But he couldn't speak. He reached out his hand, and the cub stepped forward, tapping him on the wrist. Tap, tap, tap. A goodbye. A question, a connection that shouldn't exist. Ethan felt his throat tighten so painfully he thought he might choke on it. He leaned forward, touching the cub's head one last time. "You'll be strong," he murmured. "Stronger than you think, I promise." The cub pressed into the touch, then reluctantly pulled away. He took a few steps into the brush, hesitated, looked back once more, and then disappeared between the manzanita branches. Maya rested a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "He'll adapt. He'll learn." Ethan nodded, but the hollow inside his chest only deepened. He had given the cub everything he could, shelter, healing, protection. But letting him go felt like walking away from something he was never meant to lose. As they turned back toward the trail far behind them, a soft sound echoed faintly through the hollow. A searching call, a broken question. Then silence. Ethan didn't look back. He couldn't, because he already knew the truth. Sometimes the hardest part of saving a life is knowing when to let it return to the wild. And sometimes, even when it's the right choice, it feels like anything but. The week after the release felt longer than the month before it. Summer heat settled deeper into the valley, turning the afternoons into shimmering waves of dry air, the kind that made the ground crack and the sky look bruised with haze. Ethan tried to fall back into routine, but every corner of the clinic held some small reminder of the cub he had carried up into Granite Hollow. The folded towel on the counter, the empty spot beneath the exam table where the cub used to curl up against his boot. Even the quiet itself felt wrong. The room had grown accustomed to soft chirps and odd little questions that no wild animal should have ever made. Now there was only silence. On the fourth morning, Ethan walked into the exam room and found himself automatically checking the sunlit patch on the floor, as if expecting to find a sandy furred body waiting for him. He stopped when he realized what he was doing, shook his head, and forced himself toward the supply cabinet. But when he reached for a set of gloves, he froze at the faintest impression of small claws left on the wood panel near the baseboard, a mark he hadn't had the heart to scrub away. Maya noticed the shift in him easily. She stopped by the clinic between patrols, offering iced tea or dropping off snacks she never stayed long enough to share. Each time she looked around the room with a softness in her eyes, as though expecting the cub to leap from behind a chair just to complain about the heat. "He's adapting," she told Ethan gently. "He'll learn to hunt, to survive. Mountain lions have instincts stronger than anything we can teach." Ethan nodded. But instinct didn't explain the feeling that something had been ripped out of the rhythm of his day, leaving behind a hollow shape that nothing else filled. He tried focusing on work, on medical charts, on clients worried about dog allergies or aging cats, even using his quieter moments to research better insurance options for the clinic, something he hadn't had time for in months, but his mind never stayed there long. It always drifted back to Granite Hollow, and to a cub who had asked him why without a real word. Liam did his best to lighten the mood. He talked non-stop about upcoming tech certifications, about how online advertising worked, how people reacted emotionally to storytelling, how keyword trends shifted with economic pressure. None of it stuck. Not when the intern kept glancing toward the window, hoping to see a flash of sandy fur in the yard. "Still nothing?" he asked one afternoon, wiping sweat from his forehead as the air conditioner rattled weakly in protest. "Nothing," Ethan said. Liam hesitated, then lowered his voice. "I haven't heard anything on social media either. If Reed's looking for him, he's doing it quietly." That did little to calm Ethan's nerves. Reed was still out there, and the cub was somewhere alone, maybe still limping, maybe still trusting the wrong sounds, the wrong voices, the wrong people. That evening, Ethan stayed late at the clinic again, cleaning counters that didn't need cleaning and reorganizing drawers that were already organized. When he finally stepped outside, the sun had dipped behind the ridge, leaving behind a faint orange wash across the horizon. The parking lot radiated leftover heat. The silence was thick enough to hear the distant hum of highway traffic miles away. He locked the door and turned to leave. Tap, tap, tap. He froze mid-step. The sound had come from behind him. Light, soft, rhythmic. Exactly 3 beats. Exactly the pattern the cub used when seeking his attention. He spun around and unlocked the door again, pushing it open. Nothing, no cub, no movement. Only the slowing pulse of hot air shifting through the hallway. He waited, breath held. Tap. This time the sound came from outside, somewhere near the edge of the building, toward the tree line where oak and pine tangled into shadows. "Maya?" he called out, though he already knew it wasn't her. He stepped outside again, the gravel crunching beneath his boots. The evening had grown darker, the kind of darkness that blurred the line between a shadow and something that might be hiding in it. He scanned the yard carefully. A shape moved near the fence, small, low to the ground. Not a mountain lion, at least not the right shape. The movement was too quick, too jittery. Then it darted into better view. A raccoon. Just a raccoon. Ethan exhaled, releasing a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The little creature knocked over a can near the fence, which must have caused the tapping sound. For a moment he stood still, feeling a mix of relief and disappointment wash over him. He walked back toward the clinic door, trying to shake the feeling of expectation clinging to him like humidity. Inside, the lights flickered softly. The cool air smelled faintly of disinfectant and something warmer, sun-warmed cotton and faint traces of formula. The memory of the cub was everywhere. "Get it together," he whispered to himself. But even the sound of his own voice couldn't drown out the quiet ache that settled in deeper each day. The next morning began the same, but ended differently. Near noon, Maya stormed into the clinic, dust rising from her boots with each hurried step. Her radio hung loose at her hip, still crackling with ranger chatter. "Ethan," she said, breath catching, "we found new tracks near Alder Creek." His stomach dropped. "Mountain lion tracks?" "And human ones," she said grimly. "Dawson thinks Reed is setting new traps." Ethan felt the world tilt around him. Everything inside him went cold despite the heat. "Was there blood?" he asked. Maya hesitated, just for a second. "No, but the tracks were small," she said quietly. "Smaller than an adult cougar, close to the size of—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Liam, hearing the voices, emerged from the back room pale as flour. So he might have gone back to find the cub? "He might never have stopped searching," Maya said. "Predators are valuable on the black market. Cubs even more so." Ethan pressed a hand to his forehead. He couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The cub was out there, still learning to hunt, still recovering, still trusting, still answering voices that sounded familiar. And Reed was hunting. That night, Ethan didn't leave the clinic until nearly midnight. He walked the perimeter 3 times, checking the fences and shadows as though the cub might miraculously appear from between the oak trees. When he finally stepped onto the porch, he leaned against the railing and stared out into the moonlit dirt road leading into the forest. The night was still. Too still. Not a chirp, not a rustle. Then, faintly, so faintly he thought it might have been the wind, he heard it. A searching sound, a soft, confused call, one that rose, trembled, and fell apart. Not quite a word, but close enough to shatter him. "Ma, eh?" He stepped forward. "Little one?" But the sound drifted away, swallowed by the shadows. Whatever made it was already gone. When Maya asked him the next morning how he slept, he didn't bother to lie. By the end of the week, the silence had become something else entirely, not just absence, but anticipation, a pressure in the air, a sense that something was moving in the mountains, drawing closer, choosing its moment. And Ethan knew, down to his bones, that the story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The morning sunlight slid across the front porch of the clinic in long, warm stripes, lighting up the dust that floated lazily through the air. Ethan had come in early again, partly out of habit, partly out of a gnawing restlessness he couldn't shake. The silence over the past few days had felt different, not empty this time, but waiting, as though the mountains themselves were holding their breath. He paused at the entrance before opening the door, listening to the faint hum of summer insects and the distant rumble of traffic far down the valley. For once there were no clients waiting, no early emergencies, no calls from Maya on the radio with updates about tracks or traps. Just quiet. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. 5 minutes later, the world shifted. He had barely set down his keys when something nudged the edge of his awareness, an instinct older than words. A prickle ran along his arms. He turned toward the window without knowing why. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was soft but unmistakable. 3 slow, steady knocks against the clinic's front door. His heart stopped for a full beat before slamming hard against his ribs. He didn't breathe, didn't move. Tap, tap. This time quicker, almost impatient. "Ethan?" Liam's voice cracked from the back hallway. "Did you hear that? Tell me you heard that." Ethan didn't answer. He walked toward the door like a man moving underwater, every step heavy, bracing himself against hope he didn't dare believe in. Maya arrived at the doorway seconds later, breathless from jogging across the parking lot. "Please," she whispered, voice trembling. "Please let it be him." Ethan pulled open the door. Warm air rushed inside, carrying the scent of pine sap and dry summer dust. The sun glowed bright over the clearing, and there, sitting neatly on the wooden porch as though he had been waiting for hours, was the little mountain lion. Except he wasn't little anymore. He had grown, longer legs, stronger shoulders, a healthy sheen to his sandy coat. His eyes, bright and golden as ever, locked onto Ethan's face with a familiarity that nearly dropped him to his knees. But the cub, no, the young lion, didn't move at first. He lifted his head proudly, his tail curling once against the floorboards. Then he did something that truly made Ethan nearly fall over laughing. He opened his mouth, shaped it carefully, and chirped, "Hello!" Liam covered his mouth with both hands. Oh my, he said hello. A mountain lion just said hello. Maya's laughter broke into a choked sob. He came home. The young lion strutted forward a few steps, as if proud of his entrance, and then placed something on the porch between his paws. It was a broken piece of charred wood, blackened and splintered. Ethan knelt slowly, recognizing it. "Is that from a campfire?" he murmured. Maya's eyes widened. Granite Hollow hasn't had any campers for weeks. Unless, Ethan, someone's been up there. The lion gave a sharp sound, an urgent, vibrating chirp, almost like a warning. Then he nudged the charred wood toward Ethan and repeated, more forcefully this time, "Rah! Rah!" Ethan froze. "Reed!" Liam staggered backward. No way. He chased him? He actually chased the lion? Maya's jaw tightened. If Reed was anywhere near that clearing, the cub could have been caught, injured, or worse. But he got away. He came here because he knew where safety was. The young lion stepped closer to Ethan, brushing his head against the vet's leg. Ethan reached down without thinking, resting a hand on the animal's neck. The lion let out a soft trill, a rumbling, vibrating sound that shook with relief. "I missed you too," Ethan whispered, voice breaking before he could stop it. "Me's too," the lion echoed, trying, failing, but close enough to make Ethan laugh through the sting in his eyes. Before anyone could react further, a crunch of footsteps sounded at the edge of the parking lot. All 3 of them turned sharply. A figure moved through the tree line, stepping into the clearing, broad-shouldered, wearing a faded cap pulled low, a hunting pack strapped to his back. Reed. "Looks like I wasn't wrong," Reed called out, voice dripping with satisfaction. "That little freak really did come back to you." Maya stiffened and reached for her radio. "Reed, you're trespassing on federal property. Leave now." Reed ignored her. His eyes were fixed on the lion, calculating, cold, hungry. Didn't think a mountain lion could be trained to talk, or mimic, but this one's special. The kind of special people pay a lot of money for. The young lion backed up, pressing against Ethan's leg, growling low in his throat. Not the playful chirps from before, but a real, warning growl. Ethan stepped in front of him. "He's not yours." Reed's hand drifted casually toward the strap of his pack. Everything has a price. Not this, Ethan said evenly. The lion let out a sharp sound, something between a bark and a command. Nay. The moment stretched tight as wire. Then headlights appeared on the road. Ranger Dawson's truck skidded to a stop, gravel spraying in all directions. He stepped out with 2 more rangers behind him, hands resting firmly on their belts. "Reed," Dawson said, voice deadly calm. "Step away from the clinic." Reed froze, then slowly lifted his hands. All this fuss over one weird little cub? "He's a federally protected species," Dawson snapped, "and you're done." Within minutes, Reed was in custody, cursing as he was led into the back of the truck. As the ranger vehicles pulled away, quiet returned to the clearing. A different quiet this time, not empty, not waiting, but warm. The young lion nudged Ethan's arm again, tapping gently with his paw. Tap, 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 the familiar rhythm. Ethan knelt. "You saved yourself," he whispered. "You saved us, too." The lion blinked slowly, then opened his mouth again, struggling with the shape of the sound. The "nk." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't human, but it was unmistakably intentional. Maya wiped at her eyes, laughing breathlessly. "Ethan, he's thanking you." "That "nk," the lion repeated proudly. Ethan pressed his forehead gently to the lion's, his voice soft as the summer breeze. "You're welcome, little one?" The lion hummed, brushing his cheek against Ethan's shoulder before stepping back. He glanced toward the forest, tail swishing, then looked back once more, as if inviting Ethan to understand something without words. "You're free," Ethan said. "You always were." The young lion chirped a final time, a warm, playful note, and leapt off the porch. His paws kicked up small clouds of dust as he bounded toward the tree line. Just before slipping into the shadows, he paused and turned his head. A look full of memory, full of recognition, full of something deeper than instinct. Then he disappeared into the Sierra pines, leaving behind only the faint rustle of branches. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Maya exhaled shakily. "He'll be back." Ethan smiled, quiet and sure. "I know." The clinic returned to stillness, but not the lonely kind that had weighed on Ethan in the days after the cub's release. This was different. This was a silence filled with promise. Because somewhere out there, moving through sunlight and shadow, a young mountain lion carried a piece of their world with him. And whenever he wanted to return, Ethan knew exactly how he'd announce himself. Tap, tap, tap.